Hi, and welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. Birth stories, birth education, and the pursuit of surrendering it all to God. Let's get started. All right, everybody. I hope your week is off to a great start. It is spring break around here for most people. I know some people had it like the first week of March, which I thought was super early, but most people have it right now with Easter coming up and all the kids are out of school, which we homeschool, so my kids are already out of school. But, you know, they're excited to see their friends during the day instead of waiting until after school. But lots of fun playing outside together. I know some people take trips for spring break. I don't think we've ever taken a trip for spring break. We're always just home. But a lot of it's because Easter is coming up and my husband is a worship pastor. So that is a big week for him and just for our family as a whole. So we're getting ready for services, super excited. And then we always go out to my mom's on Easter. She lives about 45 minutes from here. So she does an egg hunt for the kids and we just, eat and hang out and play outside. And that's pretty much our Easter. If you are new around here, or maybe you just haven't done this yet, and maybe you're just tired of hearing me saying it. So once you do it, you don't have to pay attention to it anymore. But please, if you have not, it does not take long at all. Just go leave a rating and review for this show. Hopefully a great one. But that really helps get the message out there to other people who wouldn't see that this show exists otherwise. And also subscribe, then you'll be able to hear each episode, even if, you can't listen every week. I know for me, I end up going on a long road trip or something, and then I can listen to episode after episode after episode, just kind of binge it like people do for Netflix shows. But I do it for podcasts. So anyways, you can also take a screenshot of whatever episode you're listening to and share it to your stories, and that gets the word out too. You can tag us at Surrendered Birth Services in your Instagram stories. That's super helpful, and my husband and I would appreciate it so much. When your first birth is an induction in the hospital that turns into a postpartum hemorrhage, and your second is a lightning fast birth where you had the baby in the van on the side of the highway on your way to a birth center, you could imagine holding off on having another baby for a while, and even then preparing for birth in a different way. But when you're able to describe your third birth as not only peaceful, but fun, I'd say that's a great redemption story. I was blessed to sit down with Parker and Michaela as they shared with me the journey of how their third baby came to be and every twist and turn throughout the experience. Seriously, tune in because this one's not only heartwarming, but has its downright hilarious moments too. Welcome to another episode of Surrendered Birth Stories. I am your host, Kayla Heater, and today I have a returning friend to share her third birth story with us. So Michaela was here in episode 3, way back in the beginning, and now she's since had another baby, and I'm excited because her husband, Parker, is here joining us to chime in as well. So why don't you guys, for anyone who didn't listen to episode 3, introduce yourselves, tell us a little bit about you before we get started.
Okay. So I'm Michaela. I'm 26. We have now 3 babies, 4, 3, and 2 months old. And we've been living in Greensboro for about 5 years because Parker's a youth pastor at our church, a local church in the area. And that's me. You can go.
I'm Parker, 28, and all the same things. Yeah, I mean, that's, it's the basics. It's good.
Okay.
Great. Okay, well, we got to hear your first 2 birth stories earlier in the podcast, and for anyone who wants to listen to those, I highly suggest. There are some great stories, in my opinion, and we'll probably maybe reference them a little bit today, but let's find out how this next story unfolded. So, how far apart were baby number 2 and baby number 3 in terms of how long after baby number 2 did you get pregnant with number 3?
So Jax was
About 2.5 years.
about 2.5 when we got pregnant with Dallas. And that was kind of what prompted us wanting to be pregnant, was realizing how much our first 2 were so close together that the age gap between our youngest and this baby seemed really big if we waited any longer. So, yeah, they're about 3 years apart now.
Yeah. Yeah, well, and I think, it was right after, 21 days of prayer in January, and we had been praying about it, and that was kind of like our focus, is because, to be honest, after those first 2 stories, we were kind of ready to be done. We were like, but also, like, we were ready to be done, but also our family did not feel full yet. And so we were praying about that, and we got pregnant, like, right at the end of that, right? Yeah.
You sure did. Because you, Michaela, texted me and you were asking me questions about, possibly getting pregnant and possibly trying and all this stuff. And in my mind, I'm like, when you say you're going to try, does that mean you've already been trying? Because then I swear it was like a week later, you were like, I'm pregnant.
I was probably just searching for confirmation that it was working.
Yes.
Yeah. It was pretty wild. It was like the first time we tried. It was pretty intense.
You guys are very fertile. Right. If you listen to the first stories, we know that you're very fertile.
Praise God.
Yeah.
Praise Jesus for that.
Great. Yeah. So, I think, and, we were at a much healthier spot. We had been in marriage counseling for about 1.5 years and kind of worked through some of the trauma of the first 2 experiences. And I just remember the moment you told me was just so different from the first 2 times that you told me. It was kind of it was way more of a celebration than it was like, oh, okay, what are we going to do? Because, we had Declan, total surprise, first one, and then we had Jax, our second. And when we found out we were pregnant with him, it was kind of like if we don't get pregnant now, we'll never get pregnant again, because it was so traumatic the first time around. And it was just kind of like, okay, we're kind of forced into the baby season, so let's just do it, And obviously we still prayed about it and made sure we were like in a good financial spot. We moved houses to kind of prep for that and grow our family. And, but yeah, I think that we just hadn't taken as much time as we needed to work through some of the stuff that we needed to work through from that first baby. So having the announcement for the third was much happier.
So we know the first one was a hospital birth, and the second one you had at a birth center. Well, kind of. You got your care at a birth center.
Right.
So how did you decide to go about care this time?
It's a great question.
That is a fantastic question.
Well, I think I was really hoping for a home birth. But our birth center was our compromise. It just made Parker feel a little bit more comfortable. I've realized in hindsight, I think birth center this time around was better for me than I realized, because our house is really old, and I think I would have been really stressed prepping for a home birth in our house and wanting it to be perfect when it's not perfect.
Yeah, for sure.
So, and that's just a recent revelation. But I knew I wanted to do a natural birth again, obviously, and Statesville is the only birth center close to us, so I had.
It's the only birth center open anymore.
Yeah, it's
currently.
Yeah, in North Carolina, I think, right? Yeah.
Well, on this half the state. Yeah.
Okay. And I really wanted to make it there this time
you wanted
too.
to actually have your baby in the birth center.
Yeah, I wanted to have that experience of just like being in a nice environment and have the water birth, and so that was it. We definitely discussed. I was holding out hope for a long time that Parker would be open to a home birth, but
yeah, I knew I wouldn't be.
But
we first started talking about. Well, she brought up home birth, and I don't I don't feel like
There's no judgment here. Please speak openly.
I don't feel like I draw like very strict boundaries in our marriage very often, like at all. It's a it's a partnership. We're working together on all this stuff. But I knew, I was like, if you want me to be there, we cannot have it in the home. There's just like
and I don't
just
think,
not there.
Sorry, I don't think I realized how much trauma he really had from the
for
van
sure.
birth until we started talking about home birth, and I realized it wasn't just like an opinion thing, like, oh, I think birth center is better than home birth. It was for him personally, because of the trauma that he had, he would not be able.
You just felt more secure being
For sure.
in some type of like facility establishment.
Well, and this brings up something that was a big part of the whole birth experience, and it actually happened like 3 months before she came, or 2 months before she came, which was brain spotting.
Oh yeah,
And
I
talk
talked
about
about that in the last podcast too.
For me, nobody had talked to me about brain spotting before. I mean, I knew her experience from when she was in counseling and she did brain spotting. And I mean, there's a piece of it that was kind of like, it just seemed really far out there, and I was like, okay, that sounds interesting. It's almost like at first, when somebody first brought it up to me, it kind of sounded like some kind of hypnotic, like, type, you know what I mean? It's just like really far out there. But when people that were really close to me in the counseling world that started suggesting to me, like our marriage counselor said, like, no, you need to do this, especially when our marriage counselor started to kind of pick up on my trauma and how much I was dealing with from the past two. And so when she said it, I was like, okay. And then one of our close friends that actually did the brain spotting, she's a counselor and she suggested it, and she's a great Christian counselor. And when she suggested it, I was like, okay, I trust these people more than I trust myself sometimes, so like, and then when we did it, honestly, at the end of that, it was just what I came away with was just a really great understanding of how closely God has connected all the parts of his creation, like, and in us, the mind, the spirit, the soul, like everything, and the emotions, and how it all kind of like comes together, was just pretty wild. So did that and had like a really great experience. Michaela was actually in the room, which was funny. It was kind of a weird thing for her. I think you said it was kind of weird that you didn't really want to be in there, but I was like, no, I think you should be in there, because if something happens, I want to like talk about it afterward and process, like, I want you to know. So anyway, after that, I was like a totally different person when it came to conversations about birth. So I definitely was not at the point yet where we could do a home birth. Part of that is because we had already been so committed and been so far down the line with Statesville and with the birthing center already. But that for me was like the changing point when I really did some intense counseling, like specifically to kind of heal that trauma. So.
Can one of you just like give a super brief description of what brain spotting is, so that someone listening to this isn't clueless right now and like, what are they talking about?
Well, the way that Emily explained it to me was that the part of your brain that is closest to the part that stores trauma is your optical nerve. And so basically your vision has a lot of connections to like trauma and core memories and stuff like that. And so basically it's this process where she kind of it's almost like a chart. It's like 4 quadrants of like your view, your perspective, top left, top right, bottom left, bottom right. And she'll kind of, it's almost like she has this little pointer thing, and she just kind of, she has you retell the traumatic experience that you're trying to work through, and then she has you follow the pointer as you're retelling it, and she will see like where your spot is. So that's like where the brain spotting, quote unquote, comes from. And when she finds your spot, she helps you like work through and untangle that piece of trauma in your brain. And it's kind of crazy how it works, because like, I mean, it was kind of weird at first because when she found my spot, again, I was kind of skeptical about it at first. At this point, I just didn't really know how it was going to work. And when she found my spot, I was like looking at it, and like my eyes started twitching. Like my brain did not want to look there. It was just so weird. And I was like, what is happening? And then, as she kind of explained it through the process, it just made so much more sense, So it kind of sounds like out there a little bit, but it was a really good experience for me, at least. So it's cool. I mean, I guess that's a good explanation for it, right? Is that kind of what you know of it? Mm-hmm. Okay.
Yeah. She said your brain is like a filing cabinet, and when you experience trauma, your brain doesn't have a place to put it. And so through brain spotting, your body and your brain are able to process the trauma and give it a spot so that you don't have as much of an emotional and physical response to that trauma or memory.
Yeah. What's also really weird is that she said, like, when you're doing that, the part of your brain that processes time it like doesn't work like when you're doing that because you're so focused in this like one particular spot of your brain. And I sat in one position. I literally felt like it was like 20 minutes. I was like, man, that was so fast. And Emily and Michaela were like, we just sat here for an hour and a half. And I was like, Michaela, at the end of it, she was like, you sat in one position and did not move for an hour and a half. That was crazy. Not an inch. And I was just locked in. I was focused, you know. But I mean, it was cool. Yeah, it was a great experience. So highly recommended.
Well, that's great. I mean, honestly, I have done some EMDR therapy myself, but
Right.
I was curious to hear the brain spotting experience because I know they're similar, but
Well, she said the guy that like discovered EMDR is the same guy that did brain spotting.
great. Well,
Yeah.
that would explain their similarity.
There you go. Yeah, very, very similar. Right.
Okay, so we've worked through birth trauma. We are feeling better about this
Right.
upcoming third birth. And how far along are you when you think things are starting to happen?
Well, I started having painful contractions at 36 weeks. Like, I had to go lay down because I was a little bit worried. I was like, this should not be happening this early. But they went away. And then a week later, 37 weeks, which is when you're allowed to give birth at the birth center legally. I woke up really early to some pretty painful contractions that were like 15 minutes apart-ish. I don't know. They were close enough and for about an hour. And I was texting Kayla, and I was like, I know it's really early, but these don't feel like just Braxton Hicks.
Well, Anne, hadn't you lost?
Oh, yeah. I lost
Yes,
I definitely lost my mucus plug.
Yeah.
And it was no question
No
about
question
it.
about it. The plug was gone.
Yeah. And so I was a little bit on alert because of that.
Mm-hmm.
It was just a few days before. And I texted Kayla, and I was just really unsure. I also was on edge because our last birth
Right.
progressed
was
so fast. So I was a little bit in my head about that, trying to be careful and make sure we get to the birth center in time.
They went away that morning, though.
Yeah, they went away. You were like, get up,
Take a
take
bath.
a bath, take a shower,
Yeah.
and we'll see what happens. And then that stopped it. And so for the following week or so, every day around the same time at night, I would get pretty painful contractions, but nothing ever progressed. It always stopped. When was the false alarm?
I want to say it had to be near the end of your 37 weeks.
Yeah. It was.
Okay.
It was the Friday of that week.
Yeah, it was the Friday of your 37 weeks because I was still pregnant with
Okay.
Indy.
Yeah. And Kayla's due date was before my due date.
Yes, my due date was first. So I was like, I mean, I'm happy for you. But I'm also a little bit jealous. But it meant that I could be there then if I was still pregnant. So
Right,
that was
yeah.
the one positive of that.
It was. So it was same sort of deal where they had been happening for a few hours, about 15-ish minutes apart, and then they started getting more painful, and they were getting 5 to 7 minutes apart. And there's a part of me that was like, okay, it still could stop, but this feels like a natural progression in labor. Like they were getting close together and more painful.
Mm-hmm.
That's typically
How it goes.
how it goes. And so I called the midwife, and she immediately was a little skeptical, but so nice. She was like, well, it's your third baby. They're known for causing like false labor, prodromal labor. But if it makes you feel better, come in. And
I was not about to relive round 2. So I was like, we will go here as many times as you want,
yeah.
but we'll get there.
So we drove there, and then I'm not kidding you, the whole drive, 5-7 minutes apart. The second that we get out of the car and into the birth center to get checked, they just stop. So I was like, I was very discouraged that day because I was very hopeful. I was like, man, I'm going to just have this baby
you're gonna have a
early.
baby.
I'm going to have this baby
Right.
early, and she's going to be smaller. Like I
Yeah.
had all these like pros in my mind of having a baby early. Anyways, so that was really disappointing. but the birth center that was on call was Erica, and she just knew exactly what was in my head and could see how discouraged I was and knew exactly what to say.
Yeah,
and
she
she
was
was
awesome.
so encouraging.
She's really sweet.
She was really sweet. And she just really encouraged me and helped me set my expectations for the next few weeks.
Yeah, she basically was like, this won't stop.
Yeah. Yeah, she was like,
You're going to keep having these
Yeah.
contractions.
yeah. So that's what kept happening. And the mental game in the next few weeks was very challenging because I was very uncomfortable and in pain. Again, it wasn't just like my stomach was getting tight like Braxton Hicks. Like I was having
was,
low,
like,
crampy, sharp pain
Yeah.
in my pelvis like I was in early labor.
So how far along were you when the real deal started?
Well, okay, so this is the interesting part. So I went in on my due date
For like a regular
for
appointment?
a regular appointment,
Okay.
and she checked me. And I went in knowing I want her to sweep my membrane because I want to get this moving.
Yeah.
I want to go into labor. I was ready. And
we were there.
And we were there. Parker came with me. I was like, I know sometimes it takes time for a membrane suit to work. Just come.
Oh, so you like brought all your stuff?
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
Oh, yeah. I brought my...
So you were like ready.
I was ready. I just had this...
You were like, I'm going to go to an appointment and I don't want to go home.
No, literally. And so I went in and they checked me. They're like, and I told them right as soon as she walked in, I said, I want a membrane sweep. She was like, okay, well, we'll check you. We'll see where
See
you're
if that's
at.
possible.
See if it's
Yeah.
possible. And she checked me, and her response was exactly the response I was looking for. She said, oh my. She was like, you are a perfect candidate for a membrane sweep. She was like, you are, what was I? I was 3 centimeters dilated. She said, but
You were 4. She swept you to a 5.
no, she was 3, and she said I could stretch you to a 5 because it was
okay.
so thin.
Thin.
Yeah, it was so thin. So she did that, but she prepared me. She was like,
I
it
was
could
like,
still
how?
take a few more days.
Yeah.
And it didn't. You know how you talk about how membrane sweeps are like super painful.
Yes.
It was. I told her. I said, this is not as painful.
That means that you were more dilated and more thinned out. It hurts.
That's what she said.
It hurts really bad if you're like 1 centimeter and really thick.
Yeah.
Like, so like the thinner and like wider you are, the less it hurts.
Yeah. So that's what happened. And so I was very encouraged and hopeful. But she told me, she said, sometimes it takes another membrane sweep for it to really kick in. Sometimes it takes a few days. You're still going to be really crampy and probably start having some bloody show. And she was like, but, we're here if anything happens.
So what time of the day was that?
That was 3 p.m.
Okay. So you guys were just going to like hang out for a little bit
So we were
before
like,
heading back.
all right, let's go get a coffee.
We went to get Mexican food is what we did.
Oh, yeah.
spicy food.
Yeah.
We went and got Mexican food.
At this point, I'm very happy. I'm like, I'm on cloud 9.
We're just vibing.
We're there. I'm eating Mexican food. We're 2 minutes away from the birthing center. I'm like, we're definitely not having a car baby this time.
And I immediately, after that, they were closer together, getting more intense.
Oh, so you were already having contractions.
As soon as we sat down to eat, like it started picking up fast.
And the weird thing about my prodromal labor is when I was sitting or laying down is when it happened the most.
Oh.
But when I stood up to move around, they would stop.
Must be a positioning thing.
And I tried the mile circuit so many times, but that was my same thought. I was like, she's in a weird spot. So I noticed that when I was walking around, they were getting closer together, which was the opposite of what was happening before. So again, just super hopeful. That evening went on. We went to just walk around Walmart, which, side note, Statesville Walmart is the nicest Walmart I've ever been to. It was like a department store. I was just...
It was pretty intense,
And if you
honestly.
don't know me, I love nice Walmarts. It's like almost Target to me. Weird fact about me. So we were walking around Walmart, and
It was getting intense.
it was getting intense. What, were some 2? No, they weren't 2 minutes apart yet.
Some of them were.
Some of them were, but it was still kind of going, back and forth, back and forth. And we called the midwives, and I told them the situation. I just had my membrane swept. I've been in prodromal labor. This could be more prodromal labor, but it feels different. what should I do? And they're like, well, why don't you just come? They were super accommodating, so nice. Because I don't know why. I was just expecting them to be like, no, you're crazy. Don't come in. Like, I was just very in my head, like, doubting what was going on.
Yeah.
And they were like, just come in and we'll get you checked. So I got there, and I was still at a 5, which you can be put under observation if you're 5 centimeters, I guess, there, I think.
Yeah, I think you have to be at least a 5 for them to let you stay.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So it was, 6, 7 p.m.? It's only a few hours since the appointment.
maybe something like that, yeah.
Hadn't been super long.
Is that when you texted me? And you were on the ball?
That was a little bit later. So we went
Okay.
outside and did some curb walking, and that was when they were getting really intense. I was having a lot of back labor. They were like 2 minutes apart, and I was like, okay, I'm going to have this baby tonight. This is what was happening. But we were having so much fun. Like, we were just walking and hanging out, and Parker was like reading like birth scriptures to me and like taking videos. Like, he was just we were both having so much fun, which is a very new experience for us with
For sure.
laboring. Well, I've told people many times, I feel like this is the first birth that we have experienced together.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's true.
Which was really special.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we were just having fun, and then we went in, and she said I was a 5 to 6, and I was getting really tired, and they were really close together, and she was like, oh my gosh, yeah, come in the room. So I got in the room, and things kind of stalled out again. Not stalled out, but they were going back and forth. They would get close together, and then they would space out, and they'd get close together, and then they would space out. And I was really trying to stay calm. I'm like, no, my body can do this.
Yes.
Like, just I'm going to let it happen. And it just was not working. And they have a policy at the birth center where if they don't see progression within 4 hours, they have to do something to intervene.
Or you can leave. But they were really worried about me leaving because my last birth was so fast. They didn't want you to
They didn't want me to go all the way home
Mhm.
and then
Have it
have
happen.
another car baby.
Right.
So they were really
And
pushing.
technically, you were not at 6 yet.
Yeah.
So you could leave. If you were 6, then technically you were in active labor, and you wouldn't have had the option to leave.
That explains it more.
Yeah.
Well, they were really wanting. They weren't super pushy, but they were a little bit like, you know, we can break your water and have this baby out in an hour. Like, they just kept bringing it up, and I was like really fearful of that. I was like, I do not want you to break my water. They broke my water with Declan when they induced me. That was when everything went
Yep.
down the gravel. And I knew it was going to get a lot more painful if they did that. So I was just really, really against it. And so finally she came in. It was the 4-hour mark. And she said, you know, I can tell you really don't want your water broken. And I understand that. So here's like your option. She's like, we can either do that or my recommendation would be you go stay in a hotel. And it was midnight at this point. And that was when I was around. I had texted you some time in the middle of that telling you they want to break my water, but I don't want them to break my water.
Yeah.
And
it was past midnight at this point. Yeah.
yeah, and I was getting pretty discouraged. Like, oh, it's happening again.
And you were
like,
exhausted.
Yeah, I was very tired. So going and sleeping in a hotel sounded great.
Yeah.
I was like, okay, yeah, I'll go stay in a hotel. We won't get into. We won't get.
No,
into
I've
the
got to tell this
whole-
story.
Okay, please tell the
Okay.
story.
I feel like we're
I'll
getting
tell it
kinda
fast.
long.
So,
No,
long story short,
Guys, people share 4 or 5 birth stories in one episode, so this is just one. So we have plenty of
Okay,
time for
great.
little side stories.
Okay.
this is perfect. I mean, these are the kind of things that'll make or break a birth experience. Yeah, this is great. So, well, really, an attitude is because we could have had a bad attitude about this, but we were just happy to be there, you know. But we were trying to find hotels, and we were like at the, it's at the intersection. We're all at the interstate, and, at the exits and stuff. So we were kind of traveling back and forth across the interstate, trying to figure out, which hotels had space. None of them had space. Every single hotel, we went to 5 hotels, and every single one of them were sold out. I don't know what was happening that weekend, but
Was it a
something
weekend?
was going on.
Like
Yeah.
a Friday night?
Yeah. Well,
No, it was a
no,
Wednesday. It was
Oh
a
yeah, that's
Wednesday
right.
night.
A Wednesday night. What in the world
What
was
is
going on a
happening
Wednesday
in
night in
Statesville?
Statesville?
I don't know.
So anyway,
Either they were sold out or they just didn't.
yeah, they were like,
to deal with.
Didn't
it's
want to
1 a.m.
accommodate
You're
you.
pregnant. I don't want to do it. I don't know. So
Mary and Joseph.
for
Mary
real.
and
Oh my
Joseph.
goodness.
No room at the end.
Oh gosh, yeah, and we did stay in the stable. So, so we found a hotel. That is a word that I would not use to describe this place, but we did find a spot that had space, and so I go in and I was very frustrated because the guy did not speak any English at all, and I was like, I understand different nationalities and stuff, like, but why? I just don't understand how there's no way that I can check into a hotel and it's just a hotel. I'm trying to check into a hotel, you know? So he's calling somebody and I'm talking to somebody to reserve this room. He's at the counter. I'm talking to somebody on the phone to reserve this room because he can't speak English. And so eventually we worked something out. And they charged us so much money. I don't know if it was because of the language barrier or what, but we paid for the room. We also paid $200 for this, like, you know, they pay it's like a room.
Like
what
a
do we call it?
security
Yeah,
deposit.
like a security deposit thing. And so all in all, we were out like $400 for this one night in a hotel. And he points to the elevator and he tells us, like, this is just how you know, that it's going to be a great night. He points to the elevator because it's like we're on the first floor, and there's like it's probably a 4 or 5 story hotel. And he points to the elevator, and he says, "Okay, you can go to the elevator, go down." And I was like, "Say what?"
Oh,
He said, this man just said, "Go down." So we get in the elevator, we go down. The elevator opens, and we see like laundry rooms, like utility closets, and. We go to the back room in the hallway, and there's like the windows that go out of our room. You're supposed to show like the outside of the hotel or whatever. It shows the bottom of the cellar, like outside,
What?
And so we walk in, and the whole room just reeked of smoke. I mean, somebody
Cigarette
had just
smoke.
somebody had tore it up in there. I don't
It's
know.
like their smoke break room or something.
Right, it's their smoke break room or something because it was rough.
Oh,
and,
man.
And the bathroom door was not on its hinges; it was just sitting there. Like, I mean,
Oh my gosh.
it was an awful experience, but it had a bed, and you know what?
It was so late.
It was
and
so late. We
I-
did not care.
Well,
Like,
and I was so like I need to get off my feet because I really wanted to sleep, and I had this fear like my water was gonna break or things were gonna progress if I didn't lay down. Like I was
Right.
like I want to rest. I don't want this labor to keep moving. So I was really stressed about getting to bed and going to sleep. And so I was like, just lay down, just gonna go to sleep and just block it all out.
So you stayed.
Oh yeah, we stayed
oh yeah,
in
we
that
slept
room.
in that room.
I know.
For sure. We showed in.
How
We-
terrible is that?
Yeah, we slept in that
So-
room, and we did not wake up. We woke up next morning and we were ready to go. Ready to
Yeah,
have a baby.
and they told us unless something happens, they're like just sleep in.
yeah.
Just come in the morning and we'll give you your next options basically
Yep.
to like help the labor progress.
So
So,
did you get a full night's sleep?
yeah,
Wow.
I woke up a few times. Like I would wake up and be like, "Ooh, that was really strong." Like it would wake me up, but then I would go right back to sleep. They were really spaced out by the time we left. So it was kind of a blessing in disguise, even though I was really discouraged. So
I'm still picturing this hotel room. Did you take pictures of it?
Oh, we sure did.
Okay.
Parker has a whole
I have a whole walkthrough video.
documentation of the birth.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah, it's awesome.
And that's the thing, like, again, if I had to sum up this birth with one word, it was just fun. Like
I love that.
we're having fun and making the best of everything.
That's great because if you had a bad attitude, that could have really sent you over
Oh
the
yeah.
edge.
Yeah.
Well, when we got in the elevator and I hit the down button, we just cracked up. We were just laughing so hard. The whole thing was an experience.
Not to mention, it felt like we were getting scammed at the check-in
For
counter.
sure, like
I
really.
mean, you did $400 for
That's what I'm saying.
that room.
Well, and like
You could have stayed at like Magnolia in Texas for $400
That's what
and
I'm
gotten
saying.
the experience of a lifetime.
Well, and the guy at the counter, like this guy, bless his heart, he was so nice. Okay, he was so nice. It was just the language barrier, right? So
Yeah.
he was smiling, I was smiling. We had no idea what each other were saying, right? And so like he
You
asked
should
me.
have gotten out like Google Translate or something.
Well, yeah, I wasn't. It was 1 a.m. You know, I
Okay,
wasn't
yeah,
thinking.
I know.
I wasn't thinking, how do I
Right.
resolve this
I
quickly? You know,
wouldn't have either.
he was just like showing me the computer screen, and I was like, yes, that one. You know, and so he asked me for my card, and Michaela, with the way that she started thinking that we were getting scammed is that like I tried to pay with like my normal debit cards, and like I have 2 debit cards and a credit card. None of them worked, and he asked for a cash card, like Cash App. And I was like,
we're for sure.
yeah, I was like, I don't know about this. You know?
Oh man.
So anyway, it worked, and yeah,
We didn't get stolen from.
we did not. We did not get scammed.
And we lived.
Right. You're alive.
Right.
Anyways, so we slept in.
I loved that tangent
Yeah,
story, by
that
the
was
way.
good, yeah.
That was
Good.
awesome.
Feel free
Okay.
to cut it out if you need to. So we slept until 9 or 10 a.m. It was
Sounds so
at this
nice.
point I'm like, we're on vacation.
Yeah.
We don't have toddlers.
We have slept until 9 or 10 since I don't know when with these kids. You know?
We drive to the birth center. It's a beautiful morning. It's October. The leaves are falling. It's still pretty outside. The temperature was perfect. I was like, this is a perfect day to have a baby. We're going to have a baby in the middle of the day. It's going to be great. Very optimistic. We go there, and they're like, okay, so we can break your water, or you can do the midwife's brew.
Ah.
Uh-huh.
Midwife's brew.
Yes.
You have experience
Which
with that.
I had experience
Like,
with.
hey, that's worked once.
Yeah. But I'm not over my due date as I was with Jax,
Right.
you know. So my expectations, I was hopeful it would help, but also wasn't sure what was going to happen. So we did the midwife's brew, and
Did it taste good again?
It wasn't cold,
Oh.
but they do it with Sprite instead of juice, and the carbonation was
Helpful?
helpful, I thought.
Huh.
But I think I would have described it as good if it was cold. But
So
it was
was
all room
Sprite
temperature flavored.
Almond butter and castor oil?
Yeah.
Did they put anything
In
else
the tea. In the
in
lemon.
the lemon tea.
Yeah. Yeah.
Interesting.
Very interesting. And I did like a half dose. So they kept it there in case I wanted to do another dose later. The other thing that was so nice is they reserved the room for us. So they were like, you can come and go as you please.
Okay, yeah. Let me just talk about that for a second, because I was a little bitter from the last experience because like we did not have the baby at the birth center, but we for sure paid full price. You know what I'm saying? Like, and that's not
of
something.
course you did.
You know, yeah. I mean, and I was not expecting that we wouldn't, but a part of me always thought in the back of my head, I'm like, that kind of sucks. You know,
Yeah.
like.
You didn't get to use the facilities.
We didn't get
that
to
you
use
paid for.
anything for what we paid for. You know, it's like we had like a 4-hour recovery there, and then we left. You know, and it was fine. But this time, we definitely got our money's worth. It was awesome. Yeah, they had that thing reserved for us for like 2 days.
It was really nice. So we were walking outside because it was a beautiful day. I was just curb walking because curb walking it was what really got it going last time. So I was like, let's just go walk outside. I took the drink. And it was still the same thing. They would get close together and then they would space apart. But I wasn't like out of breath laboring. You know, I could talk through contractions.
Right.
They would I'll be like, oof. Like,
So it's still like early labor.
it was still
type.
definitely early labor. And so we're just hanging out and waiting for things to progress. The day went on, and I was getting really tired and hot. I did not bring good clothes to labor in because I just was there.
You thought you weren't going to be there that long.
I was hoping, yeah. And it got really hot outside, and I was like in a sweater.
Yeah.
And I was like, all right,
Just strip that thing off.
Yeah, I should have. And so we went inside, and it was, afternoon time. We hit whatever the mark was for them that they had
needed
to check
you
and,
again.
Yeah, check me again and see where we're at. And I had progressed a centimeter. So they're like, yeah, you're,
So you're like a
6.
7.
They kept going between. They're like, you're a 6 or you're between 6 and 7. But I still didn't feel like I was in labor. And that was something else I kept saying. I was like, I don't feel like I'm really in labor. Like, I know things are progressing, but I wasn't in that, this is intense, I'm really having to concentrate yet.
Yeah.
But I was so close to that we didn't want to go home.
Right.
It was this weird in-between limbo. When that happened, and I did see, okay, I progressed a little bit. I did make some progress, because they said I could take the castor oil again,
Right.
or they could break my water. And something just switched where was just ready. I felt peace because I had so much fear and anxiety about breaking my water before that, especially because I knew it was probably a position thing that I was really afraid to, if I broke my water and she was in a bad position, it would just go downhill. But yeah, I don't know. Something switched and I was like, okay, they came in. I was like, I'm ready for you to break my water. I was like, I just want to get things moving. I'm ready to like dig in and get this baby out.
And it had been like 24 hours at that point.
Yeah, it had been 24 hours and
those third babies, they're either going to be short or long.
Yeah. And so she's like, okay, great. And them breaking my water versus the hospital breaking my water.
Wow, so different.
Night and day difference. At the hospital, they stuck a hook up there.
Like a big old stick with a hook at the end.
Caught it with like a bucket.
Yep.
And it was just very barbaric. Honestly, that was what it felt like. Yeah. And it was just instant pain. It was just very like intense. At the birth center, they have a little hook on the end of her glove. And it felt like she's like, it's going to feel like a cervical check. So she gently like popped it and then supported the baby's head down while the water was like trickling out instead of like gushing out.
Yeah.
So anyways, I was so pleasantly surprised by that. I was like, okay, this is not what I
better.
Yeah, this is better at least. And then things picked up. So they broke my water around 4 p.m. And it sent me into transition, basically.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I was just laboring on the ball, having, transition. I was in transition.
It was an immediate switch. I mean, you went from having like really intense contractions to like shaking.
Yeah.
When they started happening.
It's transition.
Yep. So I was going through transition, but I was feeling good. I was very calm, breathing through it.
Making zero noise.
And
like you do.
Right.
Quiet labor.
I know time perception is a little wonky when you're in labor land, but it truly felt like I had 5-7 really intense contractions, and then I asked, can I get in the tub? And they're like, yeah, sure, and I got in the tub and immediately felt pressure and like I wanted to push, and I pushed
3 times.
Like I pushed once and then pushed twice. Her head came out, pushed again, and her body came out.
Wow.
It was intense.
It was very intense. I mean, I was pushing with everything in me. And that was around 4:30 that she came out. Yeah. So it was like,
your water broke, transition, and then she was.
And she came out. Like, it was so fast. Yeah. And
they kept saying, if we break your water, baby will probably be here in an hour.
And I really didn't believe them.
Yeah.
It's like, they just want me to break my water.
Well, I just think they knew you've been in prodromal labor for 3 weeks. You've already been so dilated for so long,
Yeah.
I mean, I'm sure.
Yeah, I guess so.
Well, it really is all about the position, like where the baby's head is. Like,
how low she was.
Right.
Yeah. Yeah, so she came out, and I remember I was a little bit in shock because of how... Because I didn't even feel like I was in labor. And like I knew I was in labor. I was feeling contractions, but I wasn't in that headspace of I'm laboring until they broke my water.
Yeah.
And then she came out, and I think one of the first things I said was like, I can't believe
it's over.
It's over. She's here.
Right.
Also, she was way harder to push out than Jax. Like Jax just shot out. Like I didn't have to do anything.
Correct.
And then I had to like
work
I could
her out.
I was like, she felt bigger. It felt like I am really working to get this baby out. So I was like remembering that, and also just like she's here, but also so overjoyed that it happened so fast. It was just a whole whirlwind of immediate emotions and thoughts.
Well, Parker, how was that for you, getting to like be there and see it and not be like freaking out at the hospital or not be driving a car while it's happening?
Way better. I felt like I could actually support for the first time, which is a big deal because I feel like, as the husband and as a guy in general, I think you just want to do something to help fix it. And it's like the only thing that you possibly can do is just be there and support, and I wasn't able to do that the first time. Definitely was not. I drove this day, I was driving. But this time that was that was not the case, thankfully. And so, it felt great. It felt like really good. Also, there was kind of this thing, we were having conversations leading up to the birth. And for some reason, her being in the birth tub and having some kind of like barrier between us and what's happening down there was like very comforting for me. I don't know why or how, but like the idea of her being in a birth tub versus me being like right there next to it was like really helpful. And that's just kind of weird. That's just kind of a weird me thing. I don't know.
Like a little bit of space
Yeah,
between
right,
you
yeah.
and what's happening.
So, I mean, really, literally, I was just like sitting like right in front of her. She's leaning over the tub, and she's just like, she's right there face to face.
Hanging on.
Yeah. And yeah,
So
she was,
you
like,
guys were
squeezing
face to
stuff.
face with
Yeah.
each other. Okay, so you were on your knees when you delivered?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. So all in all, I was like, yeah, it was great.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's great.
Yeah. I mean,
I asked him, I'm like,
before
was
I-
it weird to see me like grunting? Like, was I making like I was like
No,
asking
you
him.
don't make any. She just like it looked like you were doing a intense workout. It's like that's basically what
I'm like,
it
oh,
was.
wasn't that weird for you? He's like, no.
No, not at all.
Well, that's
Yeah.
what it is. It is an intense
Yeah,
workout.
Yeah,
for
I mean,
sure.
yeah, that's
Seriously.
true.
You're working the uterine muscle there.
Right.
I feel like it really brought us close. Like it was a very bonding experience for us.
Yeah, for sure. Well, I mean, like when we were sitting there, when you were sitting on the bed, you're laboring, and like we had the like music going in there, and like they had the little essential oil infusers and all that stuff. And like that's not normally my kind of vibe, but it was such a vibe, So I was like, wow, this is nice, I'm just like reading, and you're over there just like rocking on your ball, So way different experience. Peaceful is the way I would describe it.
Yeah, it was very
Fun labor, peaceful environment.
Yeah.
This is great.
It was great.
Very,
So-
very redemptive.
How do you think that played into your postpartum then this time?
Well, I feel like him being able to support me through the birth kind of like translated over into postpartum. Like I remember the first 24 hours my boys stayed with my parents, so it was just the three of us at home, and he was just so attentive and so like
was?
yeah, and
wow.
so like and so caring, and which I know he was just I'm trying
Not that you're not attentive or caring.
yeah.
It's like a whole new husband. Wow. He actually cared.
It was just things that I know don't come like supernaturally to you.
Yeah.
But I feel like because you just saw like what I went through, he was just so like, okay, what do you need? How can I help you? Also, I feel like he bonded with Dallas a lot faster.
For sure.
And I don't know if we mentioned, but that's our baby's name.
Oh, Dallas, a little girl.
A
Dallas.
little girl, our first girl. We haven't even talked about that, but
Oh yeah, there you go.
I feel like our dynamic in the birth really impacted our postpartum experience together, which was huge.
Well, let me just say, to all the men out there, because I know you probably have the majority of people listening to this are men, right? But all the dads out there, I had a few dads talk to me about it because I was stressed out about having a girl.
Really?
Unknown territory, also like I don't know, just something about it kind of freaked me out to some extent. I don't know. So I had a few guys come tell me, they were like, look, having a girl is like amazing. Okay. Don't worry about it. It's going to be amazing. You're going to turn to mush. It's going to be great. And I was like, okay, yeah. And I did not believe them until it happened. And like that 24 hours, it took me a few months, honestly, to like really connect with my boys when they got to be a little bit more interactive. And I mean, now, of course, like we all have a great relationship and it's awesome, but it was an immediate thing with Dallas. Like as soon as she came out, I was like, oh, I'm going to protect this person with everything. It's like, I mean, it was just like really, it was an immediate experience. She's looking at me. Hey.
Right? She's here with us right
She
now.
is, yep.
She just woke up.
Hi, Dallas.
Oh, you talking about me?
She's like, what you saying?
Yeah, and it also was my first postpartum period, not being chronically depressed or anxious.
Yeah. I bet that made a huge difference.
And
Yeah.
no, it was crazy. I was like, this is what it's supposed to feel like. Like, obviously, postpartum is hard.
yeah.
And I had moments of joy and happiness in past postpartum experiences. But it was, I don't feel like I fully processed it or have words to describe it, but it was just so much better this time. I wasn't fearful of everything. I wasn't sad all the time. I just got to like sit and enjoy her. and feel happy about my birth experience. And also with her being my third, I feel like I'm sure with every baby, it how fleeting that time is. And even though it's so hard, it is gone in a blink of an eye. So I feel like I really just rested and enjoyed the moments that were enjoyable. Yeah. And obviously, like, we've done a lot of work in our marriage and our family too. And I think that
For sure.
beyond the birth really played into our positive birth and postpartum. We like really know how to work as a team now.
Yeah, I mean, well, because one of the most important things in that time is just communication. I feel like that if you can't communicate your needs clearly and in a way that the other person can understand them, then it's very difficult for me to know how to support you, or for vice versa. I mean, both ways. And so, through marriage counseling and stuff, that's probably been the biggest thing that we've grown in, is just our communication with each other. And that translates into every area, and for sure, this one, I agree. There's a lot of work behind the scenes to make this one a lot different. So we weren't 2 months into marriage.
That helps.
Yeah.
Well, it sounds like you learned a lot and you had a blissful experience.
Yeah.
I mean, fun, peaceful, like this. And this is I'm just sitting over here, just like loving listening to every part of this story. Well, before we wrap up, is there anything else you guys want to say? Any advice you have? I mean, not to put you on the spot or anything, but like just maybe anything you thought you might say today that you haven't said yet.
I actually did have a thought that I wanted to share.
Please do.
Kind of backtracking a little bit to when we first found out we were pregnant, and Parker and I were disagreeing about where to have our baby. I kind of had this revelation.
We are educated.
I started sharing with like a few people, and this was not you, just to be clear, but I started sharing with a lot of people like my dilemma, and just feeling so upset about us disagreeing and him being so against a home birth. And I had so many moms tell me, this is your birth and he's not the one giving birth, and this is all about you. I'm paraphrasing, but this is this in the birth world, I feel like this comes up a lot with moms to moms, and they're like, the advice was either like stick it to him and you just tell him like it is, and you're going to have a home birth. You need to have the birth that you need, or fake it and just stay home. Like people told me that. Like, they're like, well, you have
accidental home birth.
Have an accident. Yes, exactly.
Yeah.
And
God, that's terrible advice.
And
that would not have helped your birth trauma.
No.
Well, and that's the thing. I just realized how many moms giving birth really, and don't get me wrong, your needs and your desires are very important going into your birth. But I feel like this birth really taught me how it can bring you and your husband or partner closer together, and you can work together, and how like he is going through this just like I'm going through this. And it took me like a long time to even really validate his past negative experiences, because I was like, well, it's not as bad as what I went through. But I don't know, that would just be my, I guess, encouragement / challenge to anyone listening and maybe going through a similar experience, is that we still need to not only like are called to as Christians to like respect our husbands, but like you'll find a lot of blessing through working together and coming to a good place in your birth rather than trying to do it alone.
Right.
Yeah, it's good. No, I think my advice, if that's what it is, would really be to just like make sure that the whole family unit is in a healthy spot. I mean, especially if you're having more than one kid. If you already have a kid, then like do some prep work on the front end to like make sure that your kids know what it means to bring another baby into the family. I think Michaela did a great job of that. She bought some books and like would read with Declan and Jax about a baby sister and like, things like that. And she would ask them like, do you want a baby sister? And like, just kind of like work it in there and just to make sure that like you're doing the due diligence to make sure that every member of your family is included and nobody's forgotten. Because I feel like what is good is that there's so much emphasis after a birth, especially, that is put on the mom. But there's also, and that's good. I mean, that's needed, obviously. But then there's a lot that's kind of like left for the rest of the family just to kind of figure out. And I think one of the reasons why I had so much trouble heading into a third baby with all the trauma and stuff I had to figure out is because there's really like no support system for like dads as far as that goes, you know? So it's like I said this jokingly, but Michaela actually said that her therapist talked about how there's a lot of research coming out now where this is very much a thing. But I kind of joked the first couple of years after Jack's that postpartum depression was true for dads too, because I was like, I just feel like that's what I'm going through, you know, as far as some of the, you know, birth conversations went. And so apparently now it's like a really real thing. I was kind of joking, but you know, so anyway, I just think that, you know, just making sure that, like a baby affects the whole family. And so it's not just the mom, even though the mom is the priority in that season for sure. And at our house every season, right, babe? But just making sure like that your kids are good and that the husband has what he needs. And like the way that I'm able to support my wife better in baby conversations and in this season of postpartum is because I had, you know, guys like my boss, like Jonathan at work and Rick. I mean, they're the ones like encouraging me and making sure that I'm good and like encouraging me to go to counseling and all this stuff. And if you just don't have that, then like you could become a dad that just becomes very distant very quickly. And that, you know, and then, like it starts at birth, like how you start a season impacts how you finish it. And it's like, I want to finish well being a dad. So I want to make sure that I'm healthy when they come in, you know? So anyway.
Yeah. No, I love that. Thank you guys for sharing that. I agree.
Yeah.
Thank you so much for being here today. I really, really appreciate it.
Yeah, happy to be here.
Yeah, thanks.
Thanks again for joining us today. Be sure not to miss an episode by hitting subscribe. Also, we'd love for you to leave a review of the show so that more people like you can hear more stories like these. If you're local to the Triad of North Carolina and seeking childbirth classes, birth consultations, or a birth doula, please click on the link in the show notes to take you to our website for more information. Just as a reminder, this show is not giving medical advice, so please continue to see your personal care provider as needs arise. Also, if you would like to be a guest on the Surrendered Birth Stories podcast, please click the link in the episode show notes to get in touch with me. We hope you have a great week, and remember, learn all that you can, make the best plans, and then leave it in God's hands.